Yep. So, hello, and welcome to the Digitrainer podcast, where we explore the frontiers of technology, innovation, and education. I am your host, Kevin Spiteri, and today we are diving into a transformative topic, all right? So how virtual, extended, augmented, mixed, all those different realities basically are reshaping the educational landscape. Joining me today is someone who's right at the heart of this revolution, Stephen Dullaghan. I hope I've said that correctly, all right? But we'll get to that in just a bit. All right, who is a virtual production expert, developer, and CEO at Rupture. All right, Rupture is a studio based in Malta. We'll get into a little bit about exactly what you guys do. But first of all, Stephen's work spans cutting-edge immersive technologies, from motion capture to real-time 3D environments, and he's passionate about how these tools can bring education to life like never before. So whether you're a teacher curious about VR classrooms or VR, just intrigued by how XR or AR could redefine how we learn, this episode is for you. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for actually accepting it.
Looking for it. Well, you know, you drove it hard, but you know, you said I'll come to your office, and you made it very easy for me.
Excellent. All right. So before we get started, all right, can you tell us a little bit about you, who Stephen is, what he does, what do you do over here at Rupture?
So Rupture was set up at around 2021, and it sort of was born out of the what do we do next. We were a software development company, and we at the time we were 12 years trading, and it was a question of like, where do we go next? We were seeing the writing on the wall about AI coming. We were wondering, how will we be replaced? How fast? And where can our skills get? Like, where can we transfer our skills? Right. So we looked into various different things like game development. At the time, the cost to set up a studio and a team was difficult. And so we started looking into different facets. We also got hit with COVID. That was that fun period. Yeah. So we had a great team at the software company. They were able to take charge of the team while I just buried myself in the basement for a couple of months trying to figure out what can we do, where can we transfer skills. And the end result of that, like 8-month journey of not seeing anybody upstairs in my house, was virtual production. So that was sort of marrying an interest in filmmaking to Unreal Engine at the time, which was the most obvious choice for 3D graphics, and putting the whole thing together into a box that fit. And at a certain point, we realized that if we either go big or go home, right? So it was either stop, because we have a great product in a garage, but it's not scalable. So we set up this lovely building, and we invested in virtual production at an LED level, which was at the time made famous by Mandalorian. So that was that whole ecosystem of Unreal Engine, camera tracking, LED.
All right, so before we move on, can you explain what exactly is Unreal Engine?
Sure.
It's for the people out there so that they know what we're talking about.
So Unreal Engine is a game engine. It's popularized by Fortnite. So any parents watching have surely heard that phrase at some point. And ultimately, the success of Fortnite is what enabled, and like in no sense of smallness, enabled virtual production to become a reality for free, for people to be able to learn. This is like a monumental development thing that they put together now. But they made it accessible. They democratized the whole ecosystem of real-time filmmaking, and they put it in the hands of anybody with an interest.
All right. So besides Fortnite, where else do we see Unreal? Just to put people into a context over here.
Sure. Well, it could be in your car, right? So they do driving systems for cars nowadays. You can see it in some of the AAA games, console, on PC. It's quite a powerful platform, but it's like the way when we talk about Unreal Engine and we're trying to figure out like skill sets of people, it's not necessarily can you build a game. It's more of a what part of the cycle do you most gel with, because you could have a career just lighting scenes, you know, like that can just be a career, just like in the real world physical locations.
So this is what you mean by virtual production, basically. So when you think about production nowadays, then we think about film production.
Sure.
You think about the camera work, you think about the lighting, you think about the actors, you think about the setting, you think about the set, you think about the location.
Sure.
And basically every one of these little bit of elements can actually be done virtually in Unreal.
Like there's pros and cons to everything, right? So not everything should be done in virtual production. Not everything should be done in Unreal Engine. Physical film should not go away. It is spectacular. But there are ways to improve the pipeline. So you can use Unreal Engine to pre-visualize a scene. Like for instance, we've taken a drone out and we've scanned an environment, brought it into Unreal Engine as a one-to-one replica of a location, and we can then light it. We can set our camera angles, and we can have the entire pre-vis set gone through. DP can be involved, director, everybody's involved. And then when they go on location, they know exactly where the tripod's going to go, where the lights are going to go. And you streamline the on-location period. So you're still getting the magic of what is on location. And then
so you're saying that you can basically scan any kind of area, any kind of location.
Sure.
And then we'll tie this into VR later, but then you can explore this area within a virtual environment.
Correct.
All right. So any kind of area we're talking about.
So I would say stone is great. Trees are not very friendly. Right? Because typically when you're taking images for photogrammetry with a drone, every frame has something different with a tree. So it's hard to get that right. While a building is not going anywhere. So the only thing you're fighting there is sunlight. So as the sun moves, as a cloud moved, but they're not
so once you've scanned an environment, you can technically put on a headset and you're actually sort of...
Correct. So you can, like we've done it where we put a physical location like scanned into Unreal Engine, put it onto our screen, and then we filmed scenes against our screen, which would be emulating a real life scenario. We've also done it with VR where you can go into that world, same scene with a headset, and you can walk around it. You can go in from your desktop, just navigating mouse and keyboard and scroll around it. And you can look at parts of a building that you could never have seen from the ground, like just a pure curiosity. So that becomes relevant for surveying and for damage control. Like if there's like a spire that people can't get to, it's very inaccessible. You can then go in and you can look at that. So architectural-wise, survey-wise, a lot of benefits. So like Unreal Engine has it's just a vast product. It's more of a platform than anything else. Like it's a full ecosystem, and like more and more people are getting into it. Like we're hearing companies use terminology with us that like 2 or 3 years ago would have been complete unknowns for them. But they've like actively been, okay, the world is moving this way, I'm getting into this. And now we're using like actual terminology of like file formats and what. It's like great to hear, you know.
Right, so let's go now to the basic terminology and let's try to merge this with what we're talking about with regards to VR. I mean, like VR, I think most of the public out there, they understand, VR, virtual reality. When they think about virtual reality, they think about somebody with some goggles on their head, basically, and you're immersed over there. But you've got VR, you've got XR, you've got AR, you've got MR, and you've got all these different acronyms, basically. So can you try to make sense of what are all of these things that we're hearing about?
Sure. No. No. So if we break them down into so with virtual production, it's basically all of it. So everything is fundamentally in some capacity involved. So if we look at XR is like extended reality. So for simple terms, I can say that we're extending reality in our LED volume because we're putting physical people in a scene, 3D scene, and we're moving a camera, and now we're extending their set beyond what was possible, what was physical, right? So we're blending the virtual. Then we get into VR, which is where you put a headset on and you effectively immerse yourself from the world. So now you're only in that world. You're not seeing anything else. You're not experiencing anything else. You might get a bit of wind or fan or something, but the intent is that you're in that world and you're immersed in that world.
Full immersion.
Full immersion. Then you have mixed reality. Mixed reality is a little bit more like, I think the easiest way is to think of like something like motion capture, where we have like let's say we have a prop. So we create a box, any kind of crate, and we put tracking markers on it, and we emulate that in a 3D world. So the physical person will be able to go in and move that box in the real world, where in the virtual world, we'll be seeing that box move. Right. So now you're able to put together even a virtual actor or virtual cast, but there's a physical person manipulating objects.
Okay.
So you're able to have that mixed world. And then when you have AR is like most popularized probably by Pokemon Go, where you have your mobile phone and you're running around chasing little creatures, you know, and that was you with your phone seeing a projection in 3D space, basically, in through your phone. That technology is very interesting, and I think the extension to what that is wherever they go with Google Glasses or Apple Glasses and whatnot, where you're able to see advertising everywhere you walk, which is going to be great.
Amazing, right? Yeah. So it's not only through your phone now, but it's actually everywhere. I mean, like I'm seeing these glasses pop up, you know what I mean? Like the XR, the X3, and all that stuff, which interesting technology, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's something which I'm going to be getting into myself to have that constantly on my face, but I think everything is good in small doses, you know what I mean? And I think everything has to serve its purpose. But let's stick to it when it comes to, let's just go a little bit back to you. How did you actually get involved in this immersive kind of thing? So let's say VR. What's your experience with VR production? I know that you did something recently as well. We visited you at a conference just a couple of weeks ago where you set something up. Tell me a little bit about how you started to get into the VR space,
Sure.
the first couple of things. And I'd like to know a little bit more about this little project that you ran a couple of weeks ago.
Sure. So we got into VR by proxy of already being on Unreal Engine, already using VR glasses for virtual scouting and looking at different scenes through them. So we were already in that space without really paying attention to it. It was just another tool that we were using. About a year and a half ago, we started to take an active look at VR as a product, as a game, what can we do with it? Like taking all of our skill sets from the team across all the stuff that we do, what can we build? And of course, we decided to be ambitious with it. Why would you not? So as a result of all that, we ended up in communication with the Ministry for Environment, Energy and Cleanliness. And they had an idea that they would like to put together for VR, which was trying to make people like sort of actively engage with a bit like waste collection and be involved in making the world a better place, right? And while it was obviously a Maltese entity that was doing it, their vision was wider than that. It's like, let's teach people, like broadly, how to be better humans, right? So we came up with this little 5-minute single-player experience, which was launched at the Services Expo a few weeks ago. We had hundreds of people play the game, some repeatedly. It was a lot of fun. People enjoyed themselves. And the fundamental takeaway, if you take away all of the glitz and then the weapons and the eco zapper that you could use to pick up your rubbish, fundamentally you were picking up rubbish and disposing of rubbish. That was the baseline of what the game was, and that's what people were doing. If you were to stand outside the room and watch people, they were grabbing things, putting things in the bin, and they were just following through a very simple experience that they can do anytime in their real life. But we just gamified it, made it interesting, made it a bit exciting, had some nice audio, and it just it did well,
Oh, and that's what I mean. I tried it out myself as well, and as you know, like I initially did get the high score, but then some kid came after me and just absolutely thrashed me out.
Yeah.
All right, and this is what I liked about it, is that I could actually see it in action, where you're seeing the educational value of VR, and even if it's not in your face or direct, and I think, and this is what the beauty is of game-based learning and gamification. I think you had both of those elements plus VR as well, that the kids are coming in there. Why? Because we're playing a game in virtual reality. And what do you have to do? You got to pick up the zapper, and that zapper helps you pick up the rubbish, and you literally have to throw the rubbish in the bin. So something as simple as that. But then obviously, if you see the reality of it is that if you do go outside and you're seeing all the rubbish on the floor, and even if it's even like subliminally or subconsciously, just remember that game.
That's it.
Grab it, put it in.
That's it.
And so,
like you want to affect change, and you have to do it in a way that people can consume, because we can have a beautiful podcast and we can have a conversation about it, and people can either tune in or not tune in. But it's not necessarily the most engaging way to learn something. Whereas if you put a headset on, you give them a tool, you make it interesting, their memory is way bigger than I picked up rubbish. They'll remember the effect it had, like the world got better, the sky got bluer, like It mattered what they did, and it was they had action. They had a fundamental role to play. They weren't with anybody else. It was just them against the problem, which is like if there's a small takeaway that sits in their wee head, fantastic. You know, like.
All right, and what would you say like would the impact be of actually having that in a VR context as opposed to talk about the real world maybe, or even just a normal screen with a mouse and a keyboard or something like that? What do you think is the major difference? What gives you that kick? What gives you that engagement more than it would in another situation?
Well, I don't want to diminish people actively doing it, right? There's plenty of organizations, Isabella, I believe, is one of them, where they actively go into clean beaches and volunteers go together. You can't take that away, right? You can't solve anything in VR, right? You have to still do the work. But if you're able to play a game and it's able to help you resonate with the problem, and then you maybe in 6 months' time become a volunteer to an organization that's going out picking up rubbish, you're solving problems. You know, like you had the fun, you had the thing, it resonated with you, and you see somebody doing something and you try to help. Great, you know, but like I think it's just about trying to get across messages and fundamentally meeting people where their level is, right? So if we need to communicate with the younger generation, we have to go where they are. So we can either go into the TikTok world and we can try to be something that they scan for 10 seconds, or we can try to make an engaging, immersive experience that they maybe spend 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time for a young mind. Like it's ridiculous that that's a sentence, right? Yeah. But that's just where we are. So if you're able to hold them together, they're not ripping the headset off, they're not throwing the controller across, they're not getting frustrated. And the game was not. It was frustrating because you had to figure things out. You had to understand that your foot had an action.
Yep, I realized that.
But it's not a common
yep.
It's not a common VR thing. People aren't used to having full body control in these situations. So that was very interesting to see.
And that's the thing. I mean, like it did pick on a couple of things. Like, and then obviously when you see from the educational perspective, there's a lot of elements that you just mentioned over here. So it's this problem-solving thing, the discovery thing, the self-discovery, the self-assessment, and then acting upon something. And I think that one thing which really, really sort of stuck out for me is the way that you managed to hit the nail on the head when it comes to choice and result.
Sure.
You know, and I think it's that short time span between like, okay, you made a choice and then there was this result.
Sure.
And you've got that feedback. And I think that's what retains that engagement. You're in that state of flow for such a long time.
Sure.
Now, if you're telling me that the game lasted 5 minutes, according to me, it lasted 2 minutes.
Yeah, very good.
You know, so I mean, and this is the thing about education, like what you said, that keeping somebody engaged for 5 minutes is a lot. And I think even you saying that, you know, that it's maybe sad to hear, but that's the reality of the situation today. So, all right. So seeing that you've managed to create something within the context of the environment and cleaning everything like that, and you're seeing that it's a genuine and trying to find the word, that it's an application that would actually help somebody learn or at least become more aware of certain things, which in the end of the day is what education is. What other contexts would you see this actually working in, or do you know of any other contexts that this is actually working in?
Well, so I'm not like an authority on the education world at all. I'm a dropout, if anything, so I'm not the best person to talk about it. But it comes down to the same thing of engaging people at a level that they can get on board with, right? Like reading and following the current curriculums the way they are, it's fine. It's what people are used to. But there's a certain point where it has to be a little bit different, at least be a little more engaging. And it's very difficult to put all of that onto a teacher. Like, you've got a class of 25 kids, make it better. How? What's your resources like? Finite, minimal, right? So how do you do it? So teachers are like, hats off to all the teachers. They do like crazy work with the resources they're afforded, and most of the time it's their own time and resource that goes into it, because they fundamentally want the child to learn and engage, right? So if we see something like VR as a tool, you're able to, now again, it's not like a teacher can build a VR game, right? So it's about coming together as a collective to what would be a solution to a problem. How would we make it more engaging to learn about Animal Farm, right? Let's read the book. I read the book when I was at school. That was not yesterday. It's the same book. Nothing's changed. It's the same characters. Nothing's changed. We're still doing Shakespeare. I'm not dissing Shakespeare, but it's the same thing, right? Now, like there was a very interesting thing like Stargate did, where they revisualized a scene of Hamlet, right? And they made it accessible. They made whatever it was, maybe 5 minutes. And I showed my kid. He was doing Hamlet for his O-levels at the time. And he got it. Like it resonated that, oh, this is a great way to experience that. Is there a whole film, right? Can I learn, can I consume it this way? Because you're meeting them at that level. So you're able to engage with them at that level and they're able to retain it the way they retain other things. Like kids know how to speed run games, right? So why not get in there and try to help them understand how to speed run learning, critical thought, right? So I think if there was a way to get higher immersion technology into classrooms where it's not like the educators that have to solve the problem, but it's a problem that's being solved in a greater scope, and then it's enabling them to teach in this context of like fundamentally taking information A, putting it into information B, like this is the cycle. Like I think that would really help because you have, again, like a simple example of you have like 25 kids in a class and you've got always somebody at the back, somebody who can't read the board. You have all these situations where if you go into a headset, you can now see everything the same distance as everybody else. You can experience the same course, the same material, but more immersively. Now, that shouldn't be that you no longer write and that you don't have any opinion on it. It doesn't have to be the class. It could just be 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It could be a specific lesson in the week. It's not meant to be all or nothing. We don't have to look at the world like that. We have to look at how do we engage people on specific topics in a more interesting way. Like, for instance, going into back to the example of Animal Farm, how amazing would it be to be in a virtual reality world where that entire story played out in front of you, where you, as an active participant in that story, or effectively a camera, you can move around. Let's go into the stable, see what's happening over here. Let's go into the farmhouse, see what it looks like from the farmer's perspective of the animals walking around. Like, what is the perspective of this? And never mind the massive meaning that story has and the takeaways that you want to have. You want to be able to get it across that.
I think it's about experiencing in a way that is a bit more relatable,
exactly.
I think, to the current sort of
like
psyche.
We're going to get to that point. There's going to be a point at some point in the future where we are walking around movie sets while they're playing out in front of us. Like the level of cameras and you know, light field and all this kind of stuff that's happening, at some point it will work. And the game will flip.
Now we're talking about it at some point, you know, we might see this in an actual classroom.
Sure.
I think that one of the fears, I mean, of the classrooms, like you were talking about, the limited resources, you know, and what teachers actually have at their fingertips right now.
Sure. And
I know that we've come leaps and bounds from like my days when we were at school with an overhead projector, and the only cool thing that we saw that when a teacher draws something in a color and you could see a color being projected onto the screen, like, whoa, mind blowing, you know? And now you've got these interactive panels in the class. The kids are getting 2-in-1 devices and tablets and stuff like that. And I know that VR is sort of, let's say, trying to be implemented. And I know that there are schools with class sets of VRs. But I mean, when it comes to the accessibility, and now we're not talking about all the high-end stuff, but what would a school, a teacher, need to get started with VR? Is it accessible right now? Is it affordable? I mean, what
So I think it's like, it comes down to like demystifying it, right? Because everything is like a black box. So it's scary. I don't know it, right? So the first thing you have to do is you have to educate the educators. So you have to make something that's accessible for a teacher. So they can understand the value that it has in whatever setup that is. Because then like teachers, by their nature, will have suggestions on how that idea could funnel into this problem that we have, right? It's not about shoehorning in what I think it should be, or what you think it should be. It should be what it needs to be, right? So it's like educate educators, give them the resources to learn and understand. Give them a headset. Let them go home and play a video game on it. Like it doesn't It doesn't have to be that they just have to understand the tool, right? And how to use the tool. Like at the beginning of the ChatGPT era, we were all freaking out. Nowadays, it's, yes, use it. You should use it. It helps you. It streamlines your life. Great, just don't trust it because it's AI and it's going to come for you, right? But it's like, that's the whole thing. Like give people the freedom to learn something for themselves. Like headsets are not as expensive as the first were, but they're not by any means cheap. But if we learned anything by now, they're going to get cheaper. So at some point, there'll be the right price point that a school can adopt. Should they get hundreds of them? No. They should get what they need. They should get a good amount that enough people can go through rotations. There's such a thing as hygiene and cleaning them, and there's charging them. There's a way to move them around people, right? It doesn't have to be like everybody becomes classrooms of silence in headsets, right? There should still be social, like kids have to spend time together. It shouldn't be anything like that there, but I don't think it's, there's no silver bullet to it, but it's like, let's give the teachers the tool sets of what exists today, 2025, what can we be doing today, so we're ready for 2027, as opposed to sticking our head in the sand, assuming that today will always be the same. Like must have learned by now, in our generation, how things can change overnight, right? And we're going to go through more of that in the coming years because technology is moving fast. So we have to just get on board with it, understand how to adopt it, and be open to it. I
like what you say that, just put the tool in the teacher's hands and let them sort of figure it out. And I think that's one of the most important things. I mean, like me being a bit of a techie, a little bit of a geek myself, it's something which I had done. And I had started off, my first entry point was actually the PSVR.
Okay.
And this was when I was not, I was into game-based learning and everything like that, and I think one of the first things that I'd done, I said, put the headset on, and it took me down into the deep, and you could see the shark, and you could see this, and I could see myself, like, okay, so how could I actually use this in a classroom? What would be the benefit of me using this? Now, me personally, I just got completely lost.
Sure.
And if you take, for example, for me, I've got problems with my ears, my sinuses, and I've got my whole system is all messed up, to be honest with you.
Because you were underwater for so long.
And the problem is that I could never actually go scuba diving.
Okay.
Because I can't go down a certain thing because I can't depressurize basically my whole system. So it brought me into a bit of a perspective that with VR, I could go to places that I would never have been able to go and experience things that I would have never been able to experience.
Sure.
See things that I would have never been able to see. Yes, in those days, it was quite cartoony. Today, it's becoming much more and more and more realistic. And it also got me to think about, for example, how other, for example, let's say children, adults, teenagers of any age group who maybe have certain either learning difficulties or, let's say, an impeded mobility or something like that, for them to discover certain things. So would you say that VR could actually even help people with certain learning difficulties or mobility issues or anything like that?
Like, sure. So it's like so it's a bit of a broad one, right? So like if somebody was unfortunately like wheelchair bound their entire lives, there are certain things that they can't experience nor understand what the right way to experience is. So pushing somebody fast in a chair versus putting them in a VR headset that's moving fast, which one of those is the more correct experience? So I'm not too sure it's trying to fulfill things that they can't do, but going places that they can't get to is like you're saying earlier, like that's something that's very interesting. So somebody who'd love to understand what it looks like to be on top of Mount Everest, but the climb of Mount Everest was a very, very difficult feat. Let's experience that. Like, is it going to be the same? No, but it's not nothing, right? Like standing on top of a peak, which would be a 360 video, it doesn't have to necessarily be created in 3D, and looking down to see what does that feel like to stand there in that moment. You'll still remember that. Like, you still remember the feeling of you being underwater with sharks. You know you weren't underwater. You know there weren't sharks, but your mind is okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that it has to be photoreal. I don't want to be beside a real shark. I don't want a real shark coming at me. I will take a game.
But I think it's sort of as real as it can get without being real. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like as an educator myself, I mean, one thing which we always used to focus on is as much as possible, the material that you're delivering has to be as authentic as possible to break down those four walls of the classroom so that when you do leave the classroom and you try to perform in a certain situation like that, then it's as real as it can get over there. And that's one of the things which I see when it comes to VR, right? That it does sort of break down the boundaries as much as possible between the inside world and the outside world. Now, it's getting a little bit blurry over here because what's inside and what's outside when you're actually talking about VR. So, like, when it comes to think about these things, because I mean, like, I know that you guys are going quite heavy into creating this as real of an experience as possible with regards to what you guys do with the extended reality.
Sure.
You know, is to make it look as real as possible. And then there's the play with making it, there's that balance.
No, so there is like, so does it, you're looking for an emotion. Like something feeling real, something being real, they're two different things, right? So like, I can get behind certain things that are clearly not real, but it feels okay to watch it. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy experiencing it, right? So when it comes to immersion in VR versus, let's say, on virtual production on LED, on LED, we're typically trying to get the best, because it's in-camera visual effects, right? So we're trying to get the best visual quality in the moment, in the background, that it feels correct with the people and the foreground elements. So it looks like in one frame, it looks and feels fine. When you're in VR, you're able to suspend a bit of this, right? Because we're not trying to confuse you. You've actively put a headset on. You know you're in a room and you're sitting in a chair at home. We're not trying to confuse you. We're just trying to give you an immersive experience. So you can have a different visual aesthetic to that. It doesn't have to be photoreal. It just has to be fun and immersive and engaging. You know, so I don't think there's a big desire for us to achieve photoreal in VR, nor do I think VR can handle it. Like, I think we're still a couple of years away from like having like a chip in our headsets that can perform like that. You know, it's not there yet.
Right.
But, you know.
But now, thinking about the future then, I mean, if we talk about the future of Rupture at the moment and any kind of projects that you guys are maybe working on, looking towards or anything, is there anything that maybe you might be able to tell us that might impact education, something that you guys are working on right now, obviously what you would be able to tell us?
So some of the stuff that we've done in the past was to do with education, right? So we had run virtual production courses and we had run motion capture courses, and we're in the process of looking into an Unreal Engine Fortnite course, which is what we were talking about earlier, that Fortnite game. They've made a small version of the engine where people can create content for the game. So now people can become active developers and participants in the world that they enjoy playing in. This is interesting because it's about baby steps into a wider ecosystem. So when we did the virtual production course, we were trying to teach people how to think a little bit differently while not taking away their traditional filmmaking skills, right? So what they know, and they're just transferring into a different medium.
All right.
With motion capture, it wasn't to teach somebody how to act. They already were actors and performers. We were just trying to show them that now you're in a completely different space. You are still performing like you would perform on stage. Motion capture is most comparable to theatre.
So you're talking about the transferable skills basically over here. Right? So using something within what you use over there in that real world context, you're using it over here in the digital context.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because like there's no it's the demystifying thing. It's a black box. It's scary. I can't do it. It's not the case. You just haven't tried. You haven't let yourself be open to the possibility of exploring it. You may not like it, but it's fine. But it's an informed opinion. I tried it. I didn't like it. Don't want to do it. Fine. You know. But as opposed to anything else. So like you might have again, I go back to the lighting example. Like to be able to light a scene, it's a skill. I can't light this room the way it's lit. It looks great. I don't know how to do that, right?
I agree.
But some people have these skills. Now, if I was to go into Unreal Engine and to try to emulate this room and light it, I will also fail because I don't have that skill set. But somebody who has that skill set can go into Unreal Engine and they can light it. So, and again, we're going back to Unreal Engine, but it's just because it's the fundamental core of all of these different products that we're talking about. Like, again, VR games are built on Unreal Engine, yada, yada, yada. So when you have a performer going into in motion capture, the first thing they typically do is, once they've got into the suit and they're performing, is that we have a screen showing them what their 3D avatar looks like, and that they're puppeteering that in real life. And they will start moving their arms, wiggling their face, all these kind of things. And they'll get that out of their system in a couple of minutes. Then they will just perform. They will just embody the character. They'll go through the script, the character Bible, all that kind of stuff, and they will just perform as if any other situation. The difference with it is that their performance was recorded, not the end result of the performance, right? So if we film a theater production, which is obviously tricky, if we film that, what we got is what we got, right? If we film a version of that which is in motion capture in a 3D scene, we have all the performances locked down. Cameras are not locked, lighting is not locked, scene is not locked, how the character looked is not locked. All of that is open to
much more
interpretation.
malleable kind of result, basically.
But you're able to go in, and this is the side of real-time filmmaking, where you're able to go in now and you're able to adjust that scene to solve maybe a problem. Maybe there was a bad graphical issue. Well, we just change the camera. We don't have to go worry about cleaning it up in post. We can just adjust it. We don't like the color of the back wall. We don't want it black. We'll make it white. We'll make it gray. It doesn't matter. We can go in and we can adjust all these kind of things. So opening people's minds to the broader sense of what a virtual space can be, the level of control you can have. These are very exciting things.
It's about it being basically whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, like that's even a very broad term, right? Because like whatever you want it to be is, then you have to think big, right? But you just have to go really small. It's like if you're really good at lights, light. If you're really good at cameras, set up cameras. Do all that. If you're really good at acting, perform, right? Like these are just, it's another medium, because at some point we're going to have, I've already seen some stuff which was remarkable. We're going to have 3D movies, animations taking place in virtual reality, where you're putting the headset on and you're an active character in that story. Not in the sense of a cutscene of a game, but you're actually following that journey from head height, seeing your hands, seeing your feet. This is the level of immersion you get. Like I played something at the Mediterranean Festival last year. It was very simple. You walk up a path, you knock a door, man opens the door. I was lost. I know it's not real. I know what they used to make it. I could tell all of the technical stuff within the first couple of seconds, and then I was lost. I was absorbed. I wanted to know more about the story, and that's what you want to be teaching, because that was a year or so ago, and I can still visualize the hallway, the stairs, the front path, all that kind of stuff. He opened the newspaper, there were specific topics about it.
It was easy for you to retain what you actually saw.
Because I experienced it. Yeah. So it was all of my senses, my eyes, my ears. I was engaging with different, like you were absorbing all that. So like even pivoting back into education, by just having a similar scenario that people are used to, presented to them in a different way, they just retain it better,
All right. So, all right. You explained earlier that you started off as just a software development house.
Sure.
All right. And then you moved into something like this.
Sure.
I'm sure there was a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a long one, though.
No,
but I'm sure it was a steep one, though.
It was 8 months to understand the what, right? And the basics of the how. And then when we set up this place, it was understanding how to make that a business, how to make it, how to be able to train people on it, how to be able to do that kind of stuff. So we would have spent, after we set this place up, another 1.5 years tinkering. So like I've tried to say.
So if you have to put it down to something, how did you learn what you know?
Oh, right. So, well, that'd be fun. So, it's not being taught at the time. right? So there was nowhere to go to learn it. So there was forums, and there was groups, and there was Facebook, and there was YouTube, and there was a couple of people trying to get the information out. And we joined a very welcoming community in the early days, and we talked like humans talk. You know, hey, how do you do this? You do it like this. Okay, great. Did you know you could do this? Oh no, great. And you create community feedback. So a lot of it was learned like that, which was just effectively constant R&D. You're dealing with new tool sets, not properly documented, and you're trying to figure out how everything works. And in the meantime, time is passing by, and entities are coming into the equation, solving gaps, making things easier. People are getting more educated, communities are growing. So time then makes things much more easier. Like at the time we were setting up, there was maybe 200 different studios in the world doing this. There wasn't that many. Now there's maybe 1,000 or so. Like it's not like there's tens of thousands, because it is still a very specific product, but there's way more over the years. But they're fundamentally coming from the same kind of era, you know, of like looking at a product, thinking, where can I go with this, you know?
So when you have to look at that, because I'm sure, like, you know, when you got into this industry, it's learning how to use quite a few new toys and bits and bobs and everything like that. And maybe it's on a bit of a different scale or something like that, but this is, I think, and then what a teacher sort of looks at. Now, I think you seem like the person that actually enjoyed this and jumped head first into it, if you know what I mean. But when you're looking at a teacher who comes from a bit of a different, maybe more basic sort of background context and everything like that, for them to jump into something like this, you can imagine that it can be quite scary. So as some final thoughts over here, what kind of recommendations would you give to an educator that's trying to jump into something like this, something which is new, something which is so sort of what they would perceive as technologically super advanced, if you know what I mean, or maybe it could even be perceived as beyond reach right now? What kind of advice would you give them for them to get into something like this with a technology like this?
So, like fundamentally, whatever the drive was that like internally I had in order to push things forward, there is no success in any of this had I not had competent people with me. If I didn't have a team, if I didn't have people who knew more than I did on certain things where we could align. So in order to do anything, we have to be okay with not knowing everything. We have to be okay to ask for help. We have to find community. So like when we found a community at the beginning, we had a bunch of like-minded people losing their minds trying to do what appeared to be simple things, but not, right? And we were all, you know, losing our minds together, but together, collectively, pushing each other forward. It's going to be okay. Tomorrow's a better day, right? And it's the same thing. So like having it accessible to teachers, creating community around it, where not a teacher is having to go it alone, but teachers are going it together to learn this new thing. And some not liking it, and it's okay. Some not wanting to, and it's okay. This is all fine. You want to have debate. Why do you not like it? What do you not agree with? What could be better? What could change your mind? Like have discussions, and then align yourselves with people who are able to be the gap. Like, you know, like again, you go to get educated so you can know what it is. Ask questions, understand it. Like you want to have all that. We shouldn't be, again, putting the onus on teachers to, again, figure out how they're going to do all this. We have to be able to try to put programs in place that's able to help them get to the next step, support them, not tell them they got to figure it out. Like it's like how do we do it together, and what are the programs that are needed, and what is the safety nets needed? You know, again, it has to be open debate. You know.
And I like it's again from an educational perspective. I think over there is where you hit the nail on the head. It's basically the sharing of best practices. You know, the creation of communities, that it's okay not to get it, and it's okay to fail and to fall, which basically sums up all of education.
We have failed our way through 5 years here, right?
Yep.
Like every day, it's a new challenge. Like we have four studios here. We do about 7 different major technologies. Things don't always work, right? And even today, for a podcast, there was something not working that we had to figure out, right? Like technology is that. So, but the desire to solve exists, and if it didn't, I would hopefully have somebody I could lean on to say, I had this problem. How do you think I can get out of it? What can I do? Right? And that's it. But like, yeah, you know, it's been a fun conversation.
Stephen, thank you very much. That was absolutely epic. I love the way that you ended it. I'm going to leave that as the final note, to be honest with you, because I think it sends a very, very important point home. Okay. So just thank you everyone for joining us. All right. I hope you've managed to take away some, let's say some knowledge All right, and even some practical examples on how you guys can get into this technology, whether it comes to VR, whether it comes to Unreal, whether it comes to these immersive environments and everything, and how we could use them in education. So thank you guys, and hopefully you'll be tuning into the next episode.